welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet the daughter.
And I'm Kevin the dad.
And this week, we are covering The Who's Meaty, Beaty, Big and Bouncy because, well, I volunteer for a podcast called Musicals with Cheese, where Jess, a musical theater lover, tries to convince Andrew to like musical theater. And in one of their most recent episodes, they decided to talk about The Who's Tommy. And their lack of Who knowledge was very disturbing to me. Case in point, they were going through the band members at one point, and they said, John Entwistle, he plays the drums, right? They corrected themselves, but in the meantime, I had a mini heart attack for about maybe 5 seconds. And then they were like, we don't know much about them. Let's just look up some random facts. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You have to know the context of this band and their place in rock and roll history. So I said, Dad, we have to do The Who for our next episode. We have to fix this. And listeners, we are gonna. But first, Dad wants to address Jess and Andrew specifically.
Jess, Andrew, as the father of the keeper of the cheese, I was shocked and appalled when the keeper herself informed me of your lack of knowledge concerning The Who. Turns out you know as much about The Who as I do about Broadway shows. But I'm here to help.
Yay! Thanks, Dad.
So this is a Cliff Notes biography of the band, so I'll be skipping over the solo careers, marriages, etc. If you want a deep dive, I highly recommend Dave Marsh's book, Before I Get Old, The Story of The Who, which I've read twice.
Ooh.
And it ended the same way each time I read it. Anyway, Roger Daltrey vocals and John Entwistle bass were born in 1944. Pete Townshend, guitar, was born in 1945, and Keith Moon, drums and mayhem, was born in 1946. Roger, John, and Pete were raised in Acton, England. Keith grew up in Wembley. John and Pete became friends at Acton County Grammar School, which was sort of a combination of junior high and high school. They formed a traditional jazz group, and John started on guitar, but struggled with it due to large fingers.
Oh.
So he moved to bass, actually building his own guitar. Meanwhile, Pete attended Ealing Art College, which he said had a profound effect on the course of The Who. That whole art school kind of thing.
Yeah.
Roger came from a working class background. He had trouble fitting in at school. He was expelled at 15 and worked construction. He was in the band, The Detours, playing lead guitar. As the band leader, he used his fists to exercise discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Roger eventually spotted John on the street with his bass and recruited him to play in his band. John suggested Pete as a guitarist. The other members were Harry Wilson on drums and Colin Dawson on vocals. In mid-62, Wilson was fired. Doug Sandham took the seat behind the drums. Dawson left after too many arguments with Roger, who would eventually move to lead vocals, and Townshend would be the sole guitarist. They started getting gigs as a support act. Pete was inspired by guitarist Mick Green to combine rhythm and lead guitar in his playing style. In February of '64, they found another band that also had the name The Detours. Pete and his housemate Richard Barnes spent the night coming up with names. Pete wanted The Hair for their new name.
Oh, man.
Barnes liked The Who. Roger, thankfully, chose The Who the next morning.
Thank God he didn't choose The Hair. Can you imagine?
Ladies and gentlemen, The Hair. They got an audition with Chris Parmenter at Fontana Records. Chris had problems with the drumming. Pete threatened to fire Doug Sandham if he didn't improve.
Uh-oh.
Sandham quit in disgust, but amazingly was persuaded to lend his kit to any stand-ins or replacements.
Wow.
Doug and Pete did not talk to each other again until 1978.
So how many years later?
That was 14 years later.
Wow.
Enter Keith Moon.
Oh, boy.
Keith was a hyperactive child. He loved showing off. He joined the local Sea Cadet Corps band playing bugle, but found that too hard and switched to drums. He also had a fondness for practical jokes and home science kits, particularly making explosions.
That sounds about right.
He left school at 14, attending Harrow Technical College, and became a radio repairman.
Oh.
His first band was the Escorts, then the Beachcombers, a cover band. He wanted to turn professional. He was 17 when he auditioned for The Who. And at the audition, he managed to break the bass drum pedal, and he tore a drum skin, and he thought, oh, this isn't going to happen.
Crap, I'm not getting hired now.
But crap, he did. The Who got a new manager, Pete Meaty, who changed their name to The High Numbers. He thought the group would be perfect to represent the growing mod movement in Britain. The mods were into scooters, fashion, R&B, and modern jazz. As The Numbers, they released a single, Zoot Suit, back with On the Face, but it went nowhere. They reverted to calling themselves The Who once more. During this time, they started honing their stage image. Roger treated the microphone cable as a whip, and he would just sling that thing around.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else thought, oh, that's easy, I can do it. He was on some talk show or something, they did it, and they hit themselves in the head first thing.
Ow.
Yep. Keith would throw his sticks in the air mid-beat.
Mm-hmm.
Pete bounced all over the stage and played guitar in a fast arm windmill motion.
Yeah.
And John stayed in the background, anchoring the group, playing runs on what sounded like the world's longest bass guitar neck. Pete Meaty was replaced by two filmmakers, Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp, as managers. And for more on them, check out the documentary Lambert and Stamp. Mm-hmm. Very informational and entertaining. They were just looking for an unsigned group they could make a film about. They made a promo film of the band at the Railway Hotel. At a performance in June '64, Pete accidentally broke the head of his guitar on the low ceiling of the stage.
Oops.
The audience's laughter so angered Pete, he smashed the guitar, picked up another, and continued the show. The audience ate it up. This led to more guitar smashing and drum destruction as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it also wound up with the band being in the red for quite a while because...
They destroyed so much equipment.
Yeah, like, here's $50. Oh, we spent 60 smashing instruments. Oh, well, you're out of luck. Lambert and Stamp attracted the attention of American producer Shel Talmy. Pete had written the Kinks sounding I Can't Explain. Shel was producing the Kinks at the time, so he was impressed. Mm-hmm. I Can't Explain was a hit on pirate radio. And for those of you who don't know, pirate radio played rock and roll songs, basically songs that the BBC wouldn't play. And in order to not get, I guess, arrested by the powers that be, they would have these radio stations on boats that were so many miles offshore where they couldn't be touched. But their signals were strong enough where you could pick them up on a radio at certain times of the day or night or what have you.
That sounds like a moment in the musical The Band's Visit, which was also a movie where they talk about how in Israel they could get Egyptian movies from ships on Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. The Who appeared on Ready, Steady, Go. They followed up with Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, and then My Generation. Their debut album bore the same name. After that album, The Who had a falling out with Talmy, who held the rights to the master tapes for My Generation, which prevented it from being reissued until 2002.
Wow.
Yeah. Their next album, A Quick One, resulted in Pete's first mini rock opera, A Quick One While He's Away, which lasted about 8 minutes or so.
That is mini.
The Who Sell Out came out in 1967, which was kind of a concept album about pirate radio and radio jingles and what have you.
Oh, yeah, I've heard bits and pieces of that.
The band started touring the United States with Keith trashing Holiday Inns from Sea to Shining Sea. And I was reading how they said that the band was banned from the Holiday Inns, but they were still managed to stay at some of them somehow, so it could have been just one of those urban legends. Don't know. They played Monterey in '67, even though the band hated hippies, especially Keith, who thought their violent stage act would show those kids.
Oh, God.
The Who toured for 18 months, which led them to being well-rehearsed and a tight live act. They also appeared on the Smothers Brothers show. Keith's drums were so crammed with explosives that when they went off, Pete lost hearing in one ear and Keith got cut by a cymbal.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on.
Mm-hmm. Pete stopped using drugs and became interested in the teachings of Meher Baba, who was the guy who came up with the ever-popular phrase, "Don't worry, be happy." He had an idea for an album related to Baba's teachings, which would eventually become Tommy. They played at Woodstock with Pete righteously kicking Abby Hoffman off the stage while the band was playing.
Wait, who's Abby Hoffman?
Oh, he was one of those hippie guys.
Oh,
and he just decided to jump on stage about something, and Pete was like, "Oh, I'm not having that."
Wow.
Yep. Let's see, where am I? They also played Tommy in full at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yep. Live at Leeds, one of the greatest live albums ever, came out in 1970. Who's Next came out in 1971. It was the result of an aborted multimedia project called Lifehouse. Pete discovered synthesizers with this album, using them as the foundation for some songs like Baba O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again. Like he'd find almost like a loop that he would run throughout the entire song, and then the band would play over that. Next came another two-record set, Quadrophenia, which was, I don't know if I'd call it an opera, about the mods. It hasn't been staged, though. Then in 1974, they started working on Tommy, the movie, directed by Ken Russell, which explains a few things.
And also, Jack Nicholson is the tamest person in that movie, which that just says how weird and intense and balls to the wall that movie is.
I saw it in 1975 when I was 12 years old, and I am still getting over it.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
You're way too young for that.
I know. The Who by Numbers came out in 1975, complete with a connected dots cover drawn by John Entwistle. In 1977, the band had not been playing for 14 months, and it showed. There was talk of touring, but they decided not to as Keith's health was getting worse. He was just like getting larger and just slower.
Yeah.
And the band only played one gig for the documentary, The Kids Are Alright, and you could see how they just were not what they used to be.
Oh, I'm kind of scared to watch that movie now.
The album Who Are You, or Who Are You, came out in August of 1978, and Keith died in September after taking 32 tablets of clomethazole, which had been prescribed to combat alcohol withdrawal. He was only supposed to take 3 a day max.
Eesh.
They must have thought, well, if 3 are good, 32 will be better.
I'll do it all at once and get it over with.
Kenny Jones had the unenviable task of replacing Keith, and he had played drums in a band called the Small Faces. And the Faces. And yeah, you'd think they would have called it a day when Keith died, but nope. Because Pete thought now he could try stuff he never could with Keith behind the kit.
What? What do you mean?
Nah, well, Pete just had these ideas, and he just had trouble trying to rein in Keith.
No one could rein in Keith.
Because Keith was going to be Keith.
Yeah.
No. And one of my favorite cartoons when around the hotel smashing period is this cartoon of this woman looking at a case, and on top of the case it reads, "In case of Keith Moon, break glass."
I've seen that one before.
In 1979, the band played the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was general seating. Fans got there early waiting to get in. Only 2 doors were opened. This resulted in a bottleneck. 11 people died in the crush. Now here's the thing. The band was not told this until after the concert.
You serious?
I am serious.
Oh, no.
Yep. Pete was furious.
Oh, yeah, I'd be too.
Yep. Now, here's the embarrassing Rhode Island connection. In the aftermath, Mayor Buddy Cianci canceled the Who concert at the Providence Civic Center, even though it was reserved seating. The Who would not be back in Rhode Island until 2012. And they honored tickets from the canceled show in 1979.
Wow, that's impressive.
That is. The band broke up for the first time in 1982. There would be lots of reunion/final tours. The band was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990, and Tommy hit Broadway in 1993 and apparently won lots of awards.
Bajillions, yeah.
Yeah. John Entwistle died of a cocaine contributing heart attack.
I thought you were going to say COVID. I was like, what?
No, he died of Coca-Cola. No, he died of a cocaine contributing heart attack in 2002.
Oof.
But Pete and Roger kept on touring and putting out albums, the last being Who in 2019. They got a Kennedy Center honor in 2008, the first rock band to achieve that honor, which just...
Really? That blows my mind.
Same here.
Huh.
And, oh yeah, all the CSI shows feature a Who song as their theme song.
Oh.
The Who in their prime were one of the most influential rock bands ever. All 4 original members appear on various best-of lists in regards to the instruments, usually in the top 5, and they always rank that high even to this day. Pete Townshend assembled Meaty, Beaty, Big, and Bouncy, and it's not in chronological order because I think Pete was going more for a flow rather than order.
Okay.
The name reflects the 4 band members. Roger was meaty due to his keeping fit.
Okay.
And trim.
Beaty was Keith, because
Obviously, yeah, because of the drums. John was tall, hence big, and Pete was bouncy from his stage acrobatics. Now, the cover is the band looking out a window at 4 kids on a doorstep.
Who are supposed to be them?
I've always kind of thought that.
Yeah, because they kind of look like the kid that... There's one kid that definitely looks like John Entwistle with, like, you know, the gloomy glower and, like, the bad teeth.
Yeah. The band is in color. The rest of the photo is in black and white. The back cover is the reverse with the kids in the window and the band on the steps. But the band is still in color and the kids are in black and white. The inside gatefold is of the Railway Hotel, home of the first guitar smashing incident. The album hit number 11 on the Billboard album chart in 1971. As for me, I have an original vinyl copy I got my hands on back in the 1980s, back when vinyl was dirt cheap because everyone was buying up CDs.
Don't say that. Good thing that people don't know where we live. Otherwise, people would be trying to break into our house to steal it.
Don't even try it.
No.
Eventually, I got a CD version, I think from Newberry Comics, and it's a Canadian import.
Oh.
And Universal just needs to put out a remaster. So let's dive in, shall we?
Oh, yes, let's. First track, I Can't Explain. Have you ever had an emotion so intense you weren't able to verbalize it? The Who tries to, well, explain how that feels in the song. There's some frustration and the singer is pent up with something. He thinks it's love, but he's not sure. He doesn't seem too agitated, though, more so cool and kind of on top of it. The tone is more so someone saying this for the umpteenth time, that it's almost rote. You could picture him shrugging and saying he can't explain. Definitely what we all thought the cool kids were actually like in high school with their leather jackets and emotional detachment. I like the music video showing the band dancing in time while performing, stitched in with clips of teens dancing at cavern-esque clubs. A catchy jam that is laid back for them, but is still enjoyable and relatable.
Mm-hmm. Great way to open up this album, or any album. Just something about that guitar intro. The Who, or what's left of them, still open their concerts with this. It starts off about a guy who has trouble articulating his feelings about music. That's what Pete said it was originally. He locked himself in the room, listened to Bob Dylan, Charles Mingus, John Lee Hooker, and Booker T and the MGs, and came up with this because he was trying to put down on paper how he felt about listening to that music. Then it veers into his trying to explain to a girl he loves her. And that detour came when Pete met Shel Talmy, who was also producing the Kinks. And Pete thought if he made it a love song, it'd be similar to the Kinks. Pete even admitted it's a straightforward Kinks copying. Probably the last time he wrote a song to make a producer happy. Now here's the thing. Jimmy Page, who was a session guitarist at the time, and eventually would...
Led Zepp, yeah.
May or may not have played guitar in this song. Page said he played rhythm guitar as a session player, but did not make the final cut. Pete confirms this. Roger Daltrey said Page played lead, but Page said that Pete was on lead.
Okay, well, 2 out of 3 of them say that he didn't, so he didn't.
Well, whoever it is, it's a great song. The playing is pretty calm for an early Who song, probably because of the Kinks homage. That would change. And by the way the song opens has been lifted a few times.
Oh, really?
Well, the Nas used it to start off their song Open My Eyes, which I think you heard and you were like, wait a minute, this isn't the Who. What?
Oh.
And the Clash also used it on their faster version of I Can't Explain called Clash City Rockers. If you listen to that song, it's just I Can't Explain with different words.
Okay.
That's a bad thing.
No. Plus, it's the Clash. Next track. The Kids Are All Right. Are they though? Yeah, we both thought the same thing. We have a self-aware narrator here, which are my favorites in rock songs. He's a bit on the fritz, so when guys try to egg him on in a fight, or if he needs to get away from it all, he lets his girl hang with his friends. His squad, the kids. There are 2 things that make the song intriguing. First, the lyrics, quote, I know if I go, things would be a lot better for her. I had things planned, but her folks wouldn't let her. That made my ears prick up. Based on the preceding lyric, we can assume the parents want her to stay with this man, which never happens in rock songs. In most cases, the parents want her to leave the rock singer bad boy. So what's the reason they don't want her to leave? Do they have dirt on her and want her to suffer? Ooh, the mind races. The second interesting thing is a pattern I observed with Keith Moon's drumming. It seems like even when the dude isn't going absolutely ham on drums, he's still able to use almost every single part of the kit. And it sounds like the musical equivalent of water boiling, always in motion and staying at a certain energy level once started. Makes you wonder how he did it. Lots of interesting observations if you analyze this song. Also, the music video is pretty fun. Definitely watch it for Keith's Union Jack shirt, Roger's bad hair, and a drum set that, not so subtly, is a parody of Ringo's drum kit with the words The Who spread across 2 bass drums. Reminds you of that kid's drum kit on Freaks and Geeks. Well, that and the guy who drums in a cage.
Well, with Roger's hair, was it like we kind of like had it straightened?
Yeah, and it kind of looked like what the Beatles had, but bad, and it looked like it was plastered on his head like a helmet.
Yeah, that's when he was going through his dippity-doo phase, which was kind of like a hair gel. Like, he had curly hair.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like...
Oh, don't, man. That'll...
Yeah, so Roger doesn't mind other guys who he knows pretty well dancing with his girl because she would be better off with any of them rather than with him. He's made plans for her. Her folks won't let her be a part of them. They probably saw in Roger what he sees in himself. He tells us he feels he has to get away from the scene that's messing him up somehow. But he knows that she'll be all right, along with the kids. It's kind of like, it's not them, it's me. And I just got to get out of here. Maybe it's like a new beginning. I've got to be by myself. Really don't know.
And he means that sincerely. Like, it's not you, it's me. But he definitely means, no, it is me. It's me.
And like you said, it is unusual that it's like, you know, he leaves his girl behind, but it's not like a problem because he knows that she'll be okay.
Next track.
And musically, the band's opened a lot from I Can't Explain, especially with Keith on lead drums. And the song's production isn't clean, but it works. And I think you summed up Keith's drumming perfectly about it just like boiling. Sometimes it does boil over.
Yeah.
When the mayhem starts. And this music stops short of sounding like all-out noise, and I think that's the same thing. Like, I think Keith's drumming caused John and Pete to rise to his level.
Next track, Happy Jack. The title sounds like a Kinks song, so I'm surprised it came from The Who, because I could see that being a title of one of their songs. Is this The Who's version of Nowhere Man?
No.
Oh, okay. Jack is an odd little man who gets teased by the kids, but no matter what they do, he doesn't care and he's still happy. Well, story-wise, I thought it was similar to Nowhere Man. What we need to talk about are the musical arrangements here. First, we started with heavy emphasis on bass with a few guitar licks. The drums come in almost by surprise. And then as the song progresses, the drums crescendo and more drums get added in, and Keith Moon descends into controlled chaos. My mind was blown. You just have to listen to it. How Keith Moon knows when to hold back so that when he turns loose, you don't see it coming, and it overwhelms your senses in the best way. Mike, I don't care what you think. Keith Moon is not an overrated drummer. He's one of the best. And if we didn't have him, we wouldn't have Animal on the Muppets. And you can definitely hear Animal in Keith Moon's drumming. Just a shame that Animal and Keith never got to do a drum battle, though. That would have been fun. I'm still sad.
Now, as Pete says on Live at Leeds, Happy Jack was their first #1 in Germany, probably because of the pa feel it has.
I can see that.
And as he says, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Anyway, supposedly Pete based this song on a man who slept on the beach near where Pete vacationed as a child. The kids would bury him in the sand, but the man didn't mind. Jack in the song is not being treated well, but he lets it slide off his back. They couldn't prevent him from being happy. Always look on the bright side of life, I guess. This could be looked at as the Who's idea of a kid's song. It kind of has that feel. And Keith's drumming definitely keeps things lively. And at the end, Pete yells, "I saw ya." And that was directed at Keith, who was always trying to sneak into the studio when vocals were being recorded to add his voice and to make the others laugh while they were trying to sing. Like, they kept him out of the studio because the man just could not sing. But did that stop him from releasing his own solo album called Two Sides of the Moon?
Oh, no.
No, it did not.
Was it bad?
It was bad.
Aw.
Yes.
Next track, I Can See for Miles. Helter Skelter can suck it. I Can See for Miles is way better. Yeah, I said it. Helter Skelter is loud and annoying with no story. This has a masterful arrangement of noise, and we have a story full of drama. Man knows his woman's been lying and cheating and tricking him, and he tells her to choke on it because he can see for miles that she's deceived him. And we gotta talk about the music. First, Roger has this creepy echo to his voice like some evil spirit who's been haunting you and is going to make you suffer. Then there's the opening guitar note, which I could picture Pete Townsend doing with that strike of his arm that looks like he's bowling, which is so cool. And then Keith absolutely loses it on drums. The harmonies command that you could sing along to, and I am absolutely headbanging to this track. So much so that when I was listening to it, I got dizzy and my head hurt and I needed to rest. But this song still kicks butt no matter how many times I listen to it, and I will never get sick of it ever. Perfect rock song. Paul McCartney himself can fight me. Come at me, old man. I don't care.
Oh, wow. Pete thought this would be the band's first #1 in England. This was a song that he knew was going to be great, and he held on to it, and he wanted to release it at the right time.
It's his baby, yeah.
And he thought it was the ultimate Who record. And guess what? It didn't happen.
Oh.
As Pete said, he spat on the British record buyer. Twee! It did make it to number 9 in the U.S., being the Who's only top 10 single here.
Ever?
SMH, people.
Ugh.
SMH. Now, when the song opens for about the first 3 seconds, it sounds like the most menacing Byrds song ever. Then Keith's pissed off drums kick in. Yes, that's how they sound. The rest of the band plays the same way. They are PO'd. And Roger is so PO'd, you can see the yellow rising up in his eyes. And it's not jaundice. His girl thinks she's put one over on him, but he sees everything. His vision is absolutely clear. And I think when you were talking about his voice having that echo to it, I kind of imagine him like he's like up in the clouds looking down on everything.
Spooky.
He can just see everything. And as I said before, everyone's playing with such anger. And I think Keith gives possibly his greatest virtuoso drum performance. And you can almost see Pete windmilling his guitar during the chorus. His lead solo is stinging. And I am just going to go out on a limb and say it's the greatest Who song ever.
Sweet. Next track, Pictures of Lily. Dad, if I told you I was bummed out and you handed me pictures of a scantily clad woman saying, "Here, this'll make you feel better," 2 things would happen. 1, I'd think you were a creep and never want to be near you again. And 2, I'd wonder about your marriage with Mom. Gotta hand it to the Who, though. They know how to create interesting premises. My critique with the story is that this kid couldn't put together with some context clues that this was a photo from another time period. You know, maybe a photo from that time period would be in black and white, or that her clothes were of an older style. But maybe he was so horny he didn't pay much attention and his observational skills weren't that strong. And I do like Roger's echo on his voice in contrast with the harsh notes played on the instruments, as if you say that at the time he's spaced out and his desire for Lily is intense. Again, gotta hand it to them for coming up with musical arrangements to convey the tone of unique stories.
Pete said the Lily in the song is Lily Langtry, a British music hall star and mistress of Edward VII. And she did die in 1929. Anyway, Roger's having trouble sleeping for some reason. He talks to his dad about his problem, and he gives Roger's picture of Lily, which make Roger feel better, and he can get to sleep.
Yeah, sure.
You feel free to fill in that blank.
Yeah, we're not going to do that for you.
Then comes the kicker. He wants to meet Lily, but his dad tells Roger she's been dead since 1929. But he still has the pictures, which, I guess, better than nothing.
I guess.
His dad was a caring dad. Now, son, here's a little something.
Or a dad who didn't know what boundaries were.
That could be.
Yeah.
And it proves that Pete can write some funny songs.
Yeah.
Which
we'll get into later with one in particular.
Yes, we will. And John is the one who plays the wild French horn, possibly to simulate some sort of activity. Possibly. But it is a pretty wild French horn solo.
Yeah. Now, who played that again? Sorry.
John Entwistle.
John Entwistle. Oh, cool.
Yeah, French horn. Any brass that you hear on the Who songs, it's him.
Cool. Next track. My Generation.
Your generation?
My generation.
No, my generation.
My generation.
Okay.
No matter how many decades go by, this song will always be relevant. The older generation will always criticize the younger ones, and this song will capture that frustration in the latter group, especially the newest generation among them, will feel. My generation can identify with this for sure right now. We have the attitudes of 11-year-olds who met God and were not impressed. What I will observe about this song is Roger's stammer, which he keeps when performing the song live. Is it to indicate him being overwhelmed with emotion? Perhaps nerves? Or did he decide to make the character of the song a stammerer? Also, this was the second song the band performed on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour on CBS where the cannon went off with too much powder. Okay, what happened was, because I got the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour on DVD from the library and I watched the bonus features, after the first dress rehearsal, the cannon on stage didn't go off. The band said they'd add the power themselves, and the stagehand forgot and accidentally added some more. I've watched the video. The audience laughs with shock. John Entwistle flinches. That's pretty much it. And Tommy Smothers comes out on stage in a daze. Then Pete Townsend smashes Tommy's guitar unscripted, prompting Tommy to say, "Hey, Dickie, can I borrow your bass for a minute?" The camera cuts to Dickie, who's also in a daze, probably because his ears are ringing. The rumor was that the blast was so loud, guest star Betty Davis fainted backstage. A rumor the brothers denied on their DVD compilation because, let's face it, the woman was made of sterner stuff, so not even Betty Davis was shocked by the Who. If she could hear that without flinching, then so could the parents complaining about, ooh, the evil rock and roll.
if this was the only song The Who ever did, they would still be considered one of the greatest bands ever. Roger's sneering vocal foretells the coming of punk about a dozen years later. He even stutters some of the words. But why? Now, Pete said
why?
he based the song on John Lee Hooker's Stuttering Blues. He also said the song was supposed to be sung by a mod who was on amphetamines.
Oh.
There's also the implication of the F-bomb when Roger sings, "Why don't you all just fade away?"
Yeah,
You think,
I heard that.
Is he going to say it? Is he not going to? Oh, he didn't say
Oh,
it.
dang it.
And Roger himself has said that he was nervous as he hadn't rehearsed the song and wasn't able to hear his own vocals and was trying to fit the lyric to the music. But me, when I heard it, I always thought it was just a young guy who was having trouble trying to articulate himself and is struggling for the right words. But whatever it was unheard of in rock. And Pete wrote that one line that would follow him throughout his life.
What?
Hope I die before I get old.
Yep.
As Pete himself once said, "For years I've had to live by them, waiting for the day when someone says, 'I thought you said you hoped you'd die before you got old.' Well, now you are old. What now?" Of course, most people are too polite to say that sort of thing to a dying pop star. I say it often to myself.
I think
But we all get older. When you're young, you think you're going to stay like that forever. I'm never going to get old. And because getting older, it seems like it's so far off. And then when you get older, you realize, wow, 50's not old. 60's not old. It's like you're getting older. You're like, nah, it doesn't seem old. But if you're like 10, you're like, oh my God, 25? That's like close to being dead.
you must know what you're doing because you're an adult. Me, almost 25. Oh, my sweet summer child. No, I do not.
Yeah. And like getting older always seems so far off, but it happens and you learn to reconcile that fact as best you can.
See, I interpreted this song as like getting older, meaning, aging bitterly. I always thought that's what he meant, like getting old is like a state of mind.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to stay young mentally forever, man.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep rocking, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be like Homer Simpson. I used to rock and roll all night and party every day. It was every other day. No, I'm lucky if I can remember my name. Now, the music in my generation threatens to demolish the song. Yeah, Keith, as always, I'm looking at you. But the band keeps it together, especially John, who contributes one of the best known and possibly greatest bass solos in rock.
Uh-huh.
But then at the end, all hell breaks loose. Pete's going feedback crazy, and you'd swear Keith is actually demolishing his drum kit in the studio.
Yeah, he probably is.
One of the greatest rock songs ever. And I also have a live foul-mouthed version by the Patti Smith Group that is terrific.
Cool.
John Cale, remember him from the Velvet Underground?
Barely.
He plays the bass solo on the Patti Smith version.
Oh, he's the one who plays viola too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So you do remember him.
Yeah, just took me a second.
Okay.
Next track, The Seeker. Do you think this song was foreshadowing the punk scene that was due to arrive in London in a few years?
How so?
I can hear the beginnings of pent-up punk frustration. I think this song is a good representation of a different kind of frustration where the younger generation feels the need to find answers, always questing, and The Who referenced some of the most common people that fans look to for answers: Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and Timothy Leary. So the solution is to write songs expressing what it is they want from this life. It's not a bad song and very well written, just an energy shift I wasn't prepared for after the fun chaos of the previous songs. The energy is still there, but it's more like they're putting the car in neutral and letting it rev.
Mm-hmm. This song was recorded post-Tommy. It was the first thing recorded after Tommy. So Tommy was kind of like the shift for the band, where Pete wanted to be more, I guess,
experimental?
Structured.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to like the anarchy of my generation of like, hey, we're just going to go crazy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted The Who to settle down, or his version of settling down.
Mm-hmm.
It was released as a single, and at the time, Pete wasn't too crazy about it. But it was one of the first songs the band produced themselves, and Pete was happy with the results. I did some research on this, like what the song's about, and the lyrics are pretty straightforward. Pete said he just wrote it about this guy who's looking for some sort of answers, but he treats people like crap on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like he's asked Dylan, the Beatles, Timothy Leary, a.k.a. Drugs, and none of them don't know. They don't have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I'm sure Dylan and the Beatles probably had more questions than anything.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, he's treating people badly on his journey. And he admits as much. And he also confesses that he won't get what he's after until the day he dies. And then Pete said he thinks that even after the guy died, he still wouldn't be satisfied. And
Hey, that rhymed.
oh, okay. And like I said before, the big thing about this song is how calm it is, for The Who anyway.
Yeah.
And in this song, Keith is actually playing the hi-hat, which is something he never really did before. He just would not be bothered with it. I think hence that's why he had the double bass drums, because that he wanted that left foot to be doing something else. And like I said, Tommy was a dividing line for the band. Before Tom, the band was more high energy. And after Tom, the energy was still there, but it was tempered. And Pete may have been more concerned or obsessed with creating art with a capital A rather than just balls to the wall rocking out, which, I mean, happens. I mean, he was getting older. You can't be a kid forever. And hell, Who's Next came out after Tommy, and that thing rocks. But again, there's a shift in the band's sound and direction. The anarchy is gone. In this endeth side one.
Thus starteth side 2. Anyway, anyhow, anywhere. Oh, okay, they're back! That's the first thing I wrote. Great strumming of that guitar, almost with the intensity of flamenco. This song is a free spirit who will not let anyone get in their way. And we have that chaotic intensity I missed so much. Only this time, the instruments in their chaos with the drumming actually relaxed me because it was familiar and I could just bob my head along to a song I really like. This is the song where Roger adds the most rocky edge to his voice, but it's done in a healthy way. The man took care of his voice, and it never sounds like he's in pain. Hats off to him for taking steps most rock and roll stars never did. It paid off.
Because he knew that was his way out. That was his way to a better life.
Yep.
It was always, the hot tea and lemon.
Which does work.
Now, Pete said he was inspired while listening to a Charlie Parker record. He felt Bird was just so free in his playing. But I think anyone can relate to the feelings Pete wrote about. There can be certain times in your life when everything is just going great. You feel like you can do anything and go anywhere. Nothing's going to stop you. And Pete deliberately uses feedback during his solo, and it almost sounds like Morse code. And studio session man Nicky Hopkins pitches in on piano. He'd play with The Who. He'd play with the Rolling Stones. He was like the go-to piano guy. This is a great anthem for the young.
Yeah. Next track, Pinball Wizard. I have heard and seen 2 versions of this song. The first being the original, the second being for the stage adaptation of The Who's Tommy, which I saw at Bristol Theatre Company, directed by Greg Gear. For those who haven't seen the stage show or the 1970s movie it's based on, Tommy is a boy who witnesses a murder and is so traumatized he can neither speak, see, nor hear. What he can do is play pinball like nobody else's business. Eventually, he can speak, see, and hear again, and the story follows his rise to fame as the Pinball Wizard. Having listened to both, the cast recording version is so much better, and it's not The Who's fault. The Broadway cast recording is able to flesh this song out with more instruments, an entire cast of actors singing harmony and melody, and to top it off, a faster tempo that feels like we're listening to something out of a rock concert. And that was the version I listened to first, so the original sounds held back in comparison, which is not what I associate The Who with at all. So if you want a better version of Pinball Wizard, go listen to the Broadway cast recording or go see it at your local community theater. You'll be better able to appreciate the song in its original context as well.
For me, Pinball Wizard is the best and the only good thing about Tommy. Yes, come and get me, Jess and Andrew. I don't care. I don't. I've tried listening to Tommy quite a few times, and it always ends the same way for me. I fall asleep.
Have you seen the stage show?
No, but I've seen the movie.
Okay.
I made it through the whole movie because it was like one of these, oh my God, oh my God.
You should try rewatching it now that you have better capacities as an adult.
I don't know if I would, because it'd be like, oh, I don't want to be let down. I want my memories.
God, okay. Now, how's Elton's version in the movie?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Now, maybe seeing the musical would keep me awake, because God knows the movie did. And the thing about Pinball Wizard is I think it's probably the most recognized song from Tommy.
Oh, yeah, easily.
And yes, as a kid, I thought this was Elton John's song. And I can still see him wearing those stilt-like shoes, and how he never fell wearing those is a mystery to me. I mean, those things
Practice.
I guess. I give him credit for stomping around on those things. And hey, Elton got his own pinball machine out of it.
Really?
Bally made an Elton John Pinball Wizard pinball machine.
Oh, cool.
Now, the thing is, his Pinball Wizard was never released as a single in the U.S., so it never made the Billboard charts. But it did hit number 9 on the Radio and Records chart, which is like an industry magazine based on airplay. And the thing is, like, even though it wasn't released as a single in the U.S., as a kid, I heard it everywhere. Radio just played the crap out of it. Elton did a good job with this song, using the piano to mimic the acoustic guitar in the original version. And since it's Elton, the song is over the top. And I love his version. I love it. But I love the Who's version even more.
I don't.
It's so stripped down. They keep it simple and they keep it catchy.
I don't want it simple and stripped down. I want it balls to the wall like I'm actually inside a pinball machine and they're knocking me around like I'm the ball.
Okay. It starts off with Pete's fast acoustic strumming, which was later appropriated by the Moody Blues for their song Question.
Oh.
And then Pete's stinging electric guitar shows up, along with John's ascending and descending bass lines. And Keith keeps it pretty calm, for Keith anyway. And for all that, Pete calls it the most clumsy piece of writing he ever did. It's unusual anyway. The idea of a pinball wizard is unique. And like you say, like, Tommy's deaf, dumb, and blind, but for some reason, he can play pinball.
Well, they theorizes about why it's like he doesn't have no distractions from the buzzers and bells. He plays by sense of touch and his sense of smell. So it's like other things are still attached.
I can smell the pinball?
I don't know what they meant by that.
That thing must have some stank on it.
Well, I mean, if it's like a public gaming room or a public pool hall, yeah, there's probably some smell going on that you don't want to think about. Next track, A Legal Matter. Hey, it's Pete. I love Pete's singing voice. I think he has a very rich tone from his natural speaking voice that makes his singing voice sound warm. Ah, a man who doesn't want to be nailed down by domesticity. I wonder how many rockers realized marriage wasn't right for them when it was too late, leading to some ugly divorces.
All of them.
Yeah.
No.
Almost all. The character also seems sorry, but not sorry at the same time. Like, he's sorry for her. As he said, he doesn't want to make her cry, but explains, this is the way I am. I want to have fun and date and fool around. But on the other hand, he's not sorry for himself, because now he's free. And the meanest he gets is with that little insincere sorry at the end. But you don't really hate him because Pete Townsend is so gosh darn likable. Okay song, but it's nice to hear Pete sing for a change.
Now, this was the first song Pete ever sang lead on. Roger was going through a divorce at the time, and Pete thought the lyrics might cut a little too close to home for Roger.
Was this the wife before Heather?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So Pete's dealing with commitment issues. He's not going to be tied down. And my favorite lines, I know you thought you had me nailed, but I freed my head from your garden rails. And I love how he says, sorry, baby, at the end, which is like sorry, but not sorry at the same time.
Yeah, what I was saying.
If that makes sense. And, you know, I was doing some reading. There's also a theory like Pete is the way that he is because he's got a fear of commitment. But in real life, Pete's been married twice and he has 3 kids. The opening 2-note intro is catchy. And it reminds me of another song, but I've never been able to put my finger on it. I don't know what it is.
Does anybody else know?
I don't know. If you do know, please post below. Thank you. Nicky Hopkins is again on piano, and Keith sounds like he's having a lot of fun playing on this song.
Next track. Okay, I'm going to try it. I haven't done this in years.
Go ahead.
Boris the Spider.
That's pretty good. Now I have to try it. Boris the Spider.
That one was better. Yeah.
We're back.
Then we're back. We're going to get sore throats after this, but it's going to be worth it. In case you couldn't understand us, Boris the Spider. The song all arachnophobes can identify with and one of my favorites growing up. On paper, the stories of a person who sees a spider that crawls up the wall, onto the ceiling, falls on the floor, scuttles into the bedroom, and the person kills the spider by squashing it with a book. The end. What makes this song so fun is the descending notes on the bass. The title chorus being sung in a low and creepy growl that freaked me out as a kid in the best way because it was scary but so cool. And then the Creepy crawly, creepy crawly, creepy crawly. That gets faster and faster, so you visualize this gigantic spider just zooming towards you on the floor.
I'm coming to get you.
Yeah. But if you want the best way to kill a spider, immobilize it by spraying it with Lysol and then drop a boot on it. That'll kill it fast. Yeah, because one time I was in college and my friend Haley, texted me at, midnight saying, I gotta kill a spider. What Haley didn't know is I am also a severe arachnophobe ever since I went to Louise's birthday party and this guy tapped me on the shoulder and shoved a tarantula in front of my face. Yes, I know tarantulas technically aren't spiders, but that scared the hell out of me and I've had a problem since.
What are they?
Something that's not a spider. I don't know.
Arthropods? Arthropods.
Maybe. Anyway, that'll kill it fast. Awesome song and proves you can write a song about anything if it's well executed.
Mm-hmm. This is written and sung by John Entwistle. John,
it's John?
Yep,
I
John.
thought that wasn't Pete. I was like, he sounds different.
Yep. John's songs with The Who always had a mischievousness about them. This one, and there's My Way from Who's Next being prime examples. Mm-hmm. And the concert album Live at Leeds opens with John singing his song Heaven and Hell. Again, it's another funny song. Mm-hmm. And on Boris, he handles all the vocals.
Okay.
And he said he got the idea while out drinking with Rolling Stones bassist Bill Wyman. They were making up funny animal names, those crazy bass players, I tell you. When John hit on Boris the Spider and wrote a song about it.
Cool.
In 6 minutes.
Oh, wow.
He considers it a horror song. Mm-hmm. And the band's playing does ensure that. Mm-hmm. The lyrics, though, ensure that it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. Jimi Hendrix said it was his favorite Who song.
Oh, I can respect that. I respect that a lot.
And as for Boris, well, Boris does not fare well at all.
No.
But it's a fun song, and I think, granted it's a horror song, but it could also be like a kid's song, I think.
Well, for
a disturbing kid's song.
For the kids who are into Tim Burton at an early age and like the creepy stuff.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, next track, Magic Bus. I don't like this song. I just hate the chorus. I'm sick of them singing Magic Bus over and over. I hate the sound, and I don't know why. All I know is I've hated it ever since I heard it first when The Who guest starred on The Simpsons that one time. That being said, the story is cute. It's about a guy who takes the bus every day to see his girl and wants to buy the bus so he can be near her, which, it's a cute story. I could see that being a picture book for kids. A Magic Bus.
Yeah,
you could do that. But I'm totally fine with never having to hear this song again. I wish I could give it a valid analytical critique about why, but I don't know. All I can say is, I just don't like it.
How do you feel about this song?
I think you know.
Okay. Bo Diddley could have gotten the writing credit on this one.
If Bo sang it, I would have preferred it way more.
Now, John hated playing it live because the bass was just one note.
Yeah, I think I'd get bored with that too.
Pete liked to play it live for the rhythm, and Keith loved it because he could goof around on stage playing the wooden block for most of the song.
Oh, yeah.
Before he had to get behind the kit and just close the deal at the end.
For him, it's kind of a break.
Yeah, kind of is.
Fun, yeah.
The plot. Roger wants to buy the magic bus so he can drive to his babies every day. The driver refuses, but after some haggling, he sells it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's so catchy. Now, here's a fun fact. Mm-hmm. On the original vinyl, it's 4 minutes and 28 seconds long, but in a fake stereo version.
Oh.
On CD, it's 3 minutes and 21 seconds because at the time, no one could find the true mono or stereo source. But the thing is, on the CD label, it says 4 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, on the Japanese CD version released in 2007, the fake stereo version was used. Now, on the collection, The Who Hits 50, their 50th anniversary best of, someone found the original mono version. But this one clocks in at 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Got that? So me, being the completist that I am, borrowed The Who Hits 50 from the library because I had to hear, okay, what are we missing 1 minute of? Turns out, not a heck of a lot.
Really?
Mostly instrumental, and there's an extra thing about Magic Bus. And I thought, yeah, I could live with the 321, even though I downloaded the 434 version because I'm a flipping completist.
Oh, I had an idea about this song. Someone needs to make a music video for Magic Bus, but it's the cat bus from My Neighbor Totoro. That would be fun.
Oh, I was thinking of the bus show from Channel 2, the Magic School Bus?
Magic School Bus is way better than that. The Magic School Bus theme song is way better than Magic Bus. Magic School Bus original got Little Richard to sing it, for God's sake.
You can't beat Little Richard.
No, so we know who wins in the end. Court
Okay.
adjourned. Next track, Substitute. Okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox here.
Go ahead.
If you use someone to try to fulfill an unmet need for intimacy or companionship, then the both of you are going to get hurt. The other person is going to get hurt for obvious reasons, but you're going to get hurt too because it won't be enough and you're going to feel empty. Now, if the two people involved are in mutual agreement that they don't want anything serious and just want to have a good time, that's something else entirely, and you two can go have fun. But taking someone just because they're there without any consideration for their feelings is pretty low. That's why communication in any sort of relationship, romantic, platonic, or sexual, is crucial. If you approach the situation from a place of kindness and honesty, it'll be better for both of you in the long run. But if you do what this woman did, you turn someone into something bitter, as we hear with this song, and they will throw it back in your face. Oh, I'm a substitute for him? Well, you're a substitute for my mom, so that at least means I'll get my washing done, which, ouch. And what makes this song even more bitter is the self-loathing. There's also a lyric that references the character of this song being biracial or white passing, which to a kid can make you feel like you don't belong. Nana saw it with the mixed-race kids she used to hang out with in her neighborhood and told me about how in their case both sides rejected them, which is still true today in some scenarios. There's a whole lot of self-hatred and bitterness in a less than 3-minute song, but it's told so well. It's just intense enough for it not to be overwhelming, but to get the point across.
This song was inspired by a line from the Smokey Robinson and the Miracle song, The Tracks of My Tears.
It's always Smokey.
Although she may be cute, she's just a substitute. Pete writes his version from the guy's point of view. He's miserable because he knows he's the substitute for the guy the girl really wants. And yet, he's gonna stick it out because that's how badly he wants her, or that's how much self-esteem he does not have.
Oof, oof. Oh, that's searing. Ooh, ouch.
Now, like Smokey, Pete is great with wordplay, but Pete had to change the line, I look all white, but my dad was black, to, I try walking forward, but my feet walk back in order to get airplay in
the United States.
Yep. I think his replacement line was deliberately clunky so DJs will be encouraged to play the original version. And thankfully, the original version is on Meaty, Beaty, Big and Bouncy.
Yeah.
I've never heard the other version before. I don't care to. And it's just, it's a great song. And I think everyone's been in that situation once where, like, you really like someone, but you know they like someone else, but you're just going to get what you can out of it.
Yeah.
By self-respect.
Also, with the line where he references potentially being mixed or white passing, I always kind of wonder how that played in the UK, because I remember there's this comedian, she's British Nigerian, I forget her name and I'm so sorry, but she was saying she prefers American racism to British racism because in terms of dealing with it, because British racism is more subtle. American racism, because it's in your face and it's so loud, you know how to respond to it. She says in Britain, they're so clever, they're like racism ninjas. They're so subtle, you don't know you're being discriminated against. Because it's like, we have the stereotype of the Brits being so polite, like kind of the way the Canadians are so polite and, posh and manners. But they also use it to kind of like, really take you down and whittle you down to nothing with a smile on their face.
Oh.
So I kind of wondered how they responded to that line, considering that racism does exist in Britain, but they just like to hide it a lot more and act like it doesn't exist. And I'm like, England, we're your bastard son. Of course you're racist. Colonize most of the world. Like, come on. Of course you have a problem.
That kind of makes sense because they're going to be the polite parent while America is going to be like the
rebellious teenager.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Final track, I'm a Boy. I think this song has aged pretty well. The story is about a family who orders 4 girls, but they get 3 girls and 1 boy, and they force the boy to pretend to be a girl. And I think this song could really be relatable to trans kids who kind of have an inkling that they are boys or know that they're boys, but the world around them doesn't see that, or rather doesn't want to see that, and forces them to be the other gender because that's what makes them comfortable. And it's interesting that we're talking about this now, considering the Rhode Island State Legislature is putting up an anti-trans bill in the State House saying that trans girls should be banned from participating in school sports because it's the harmful transphobic trope that they're really just boys in disguise who are trying to cheat the system by participating in women's sports. And that's been debunked by so many medical and psychological associations. I don't think The Who knew how the context of the song would change over time and just wanted to tell this story that for the time would have been regarded as unusual or even something to laugh at. And there's some notes played on the guitar that I think are minor chords to kind of underscore the tragedy of the situation, and the drums play the pent-up frustration of knowing you're right when everyone else around you believes you're wrong. It's a very poignant song in these days.
Pete was working on a rock opera that never came to be called Quads. It, like said, it takes place in the future in which parents could choose the sex of their children. This is the only thing to have survived the concept, but it's all there. However, in this case, a family orders 4 girls and gets 3 and a boy. This doesn't stop the mother from dressing up Bill as a girl, force him to act like his sisters, and is in denial that he's a boy. Meanwhile, he just wants to ride a bike, play cricket, cut himself to see his blood, and come home muddy. And Pete was probably ahead of his time, and it just all caught up till now. And I'm surprised you don't hear this song played a lot more these days, but maybe that's something that'll catch on, thanks to this podcast.
Maybe, or maybe it just plays... I don't know. Maybe some people do play it. Maybe some people don't. Maybe it also has to do with how famous the song is in comparison to other Who songs.
That could be.
But I think if you were to analyze it, like if you were to do maybe some sort of academic paper about songs with like a queer or a trans subtext, this song could definitely be included in them. Overall, The Who are a great band, and I hope this episode provides context about the band's place in rock history and filled gaps any curious Musicals with Cheese fans might have had after listening to The Who's Tommy episode. Definitely give this album a shot and prepare to jam, and to also maybe be taken by surprise with the rock songs that make you sit and think. And I'll say it once again for the people in the back, Keith Moon is not overrated. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
This is one of my most favorite albums ever. I cannot recommend it enough. The Who have put out umpteen best ofs, probably almost as many as the Rolling Stones.
Oh, wow.
But this one still has never been topped. And you can find it on eBay for decent prices if you want, and I'm sure it's on Spotify. Now, will someone at Universal please remaster this, fix the Magic Bus issue, and make this available to the public again? Bill Levinson at Universal, I'm begging you, sir, please, please. Now, other Who must-haves are going to be Live at Leeds and Who's Next, not Tommy. And after that, you're on your own.
Yeah, Tommy if you're a fan of the stage show or the movie. Yeah. Because if you are a fan of that, then you're going to want it. All right, as always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. If you follow me on social media, I post the episodes on social media. If you're friends with my dad and you want a specific episode, he can email it right to your inbox. As always, thank you for listening to another installment of My Dad Listens to This. We'll be back next time with another album, or in this case, another movie to nitpick and gripe about. Dad!
And we'll also have someone who got married in the rock and roll world and has been married for over 40 years to the same person.
And maybe after this, we can watch the parody that Documentary Now did, which apparently they thought was really hilarious. And you can find it on Netflix still, I think.
Oh, good.
All right, Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off, and now that we've essentially given our next episode away?
In the words of Chairman Pete, rock and roll might not solve your problems, but it does let you dance all over them.
See you next time.